Once upon a time, there was a branch of Bishop Kwadei's ministry located on one of Zambique University campuses. It was being overseen by one of the missionaries, Pastor Joel, who was devoted to guiding the students, teaching them the ways of the Lord, and helping them understand the importance of maintaining discipline and focus on their studies while living a Christ-centered life on campus. One day, Bishop Kwadei traveled to the Gold Coast. While there, he discovered that his senior bishop had decided to leave their old denomination and had now launched a new campus ministry. The senior bishop declared that his new focus would be on the youth, the university students, whom he described as the future of the organization. The initiative quickly gained attention and enthusiasm, even among some of the country missionaries who admired the vision and began following the same pattern. When Bishop Kwadei returned to Zambique, he immediately announced to Pastor Joel that from that moment on, he himself would take over the campus ministry. He explained that he wanted to channel all his attention, energy, and resources toward the students because, in his words, they are the future of the Zambique missions. Consequently, Pastor Joel had to step down and return to the main headquarters, while Bishop Kwadei began personally overseeing the campus fellowship. At first, everyone supported the decision. It seemed like a positive step. After all, greater focus on the students meant more spiritual growth, more mentorship, and a stronger future for the mission in Zambique. The campus was full of vibrant young people, medical students, engineers, computer science students, and many others, all eager to learn and serve. It truly appeared to be a promising new phase for the ministry. Bishop Samuel Kwadei seemed attentive, visiting the hostels, arranging extra shepherding sessions, and creating a mentoring program for those who showed zeal. Among them was Ariella, a medical student. She was intelligent and eager to serve the Lord. Her testimony impressed many. She often said, "Christ found me in the dark." Bishop Kwadei noticed her early. He praised her prayers in public, gave her small leadership roles, and often asked her to read scriptures during services. Bishop Samuel Kwadei repeatedly used language like, "I am your father in the Lord," to justify inappropriate familiarity, insisting that he should be called Daddy. Unfortunately for the female students, Bishop Kwadei, upon knowing about the vulnerability of some of the female students, he began talking to them about their intimate issues, to the extent of physically touching their breasts and buttock in meetings, inappropriate conversations about sex, characteristics of private parts, and spiritual guilt tactics. Gradually, he introduced teachings that blurred moral boundaries, equating obedience to him with obedience to God. One day, during one of his usual meetings, Bishop Kwadei shared a story, the kind of story he often used to shape people's minds under the guise of spiritual teaching. He said there was once a pastor who came to his church office feeling very low and discouraged. His female secretary, who also happened to be his so-called spiritual daughter, noticed his mood and asked, "Daddy, why are you down today? You don't look like yourself." The pastor sighed deeply and replied, "My daughter, I'm going through a lot. I feel so weak and burdened. Honestly, I'm thinking of doing something foolish. I'm tempted to go out and sleep with a prostitute." Shocked, the secretary asked, "Why, Daddy?" He answered, "Because my wife has refused to be intimate with me for a long time. I feel rejected and pressured." Then, according to the story Bishop Kwadei told, the young lady said, "Oh no, God forbid, Daddy. Instead of you going to the streets and disgracing yourself, I offer myself to you. If you ever feel that urge, I'm here for you." So according to Bishop Kwadei, the pastor went to a hotel with the so-called spiritual daughter and had sex. The pastor told the secretary not to worry because her secrets will stay with him. After finishing the story, Bishop Kwadei paused, looking around with his usual calm but calculating expression. He then asked those present, Ariella, Lady Pastor Ella, and one of the brothers, what they thought of the lady's actions. Without realizing the trap behind the story, they responded, "The lady did well. She protected her pastor from public shame. She's a loyal and faithful daughter who covered her father's nakedness." But what they didn't know was that Bishop Kwadei's parable had a hidden agenda. He wasn't simply sharing a moral story. He was testing the minds and boundaries of his listeners. He was using it as one of his psychological tools, part of the manipulation he often practiced. The story was not innocent. It was a strategic narrative meant to normalize sin, to desensitize their conscience, and to prepare the ground for his next move. Because in truth, Bishop Kwadei's eyes were already set on Ariella. He singled out Ariella from the campus group, and over time he started seeing Ariella as object of his desire to satisfy his immoral urges. He began sending late-night messages and video calls couched in spiritual talk. "The Spirit told me to check on your purity. I must guide it closely." Soon he was making unannounced visits to the female hostel, sometimes bringing snacks, sometimes saying he had prophetic words. At first, Ariella thought it was pastoral care, but the bishop's tone grew personal. Compliments on looks, unnecessary physical closeness, and questions about private matters. Ariella felt confused. He was her pastor, the man who had baptized her. She wanted to believe he meant well. Bishop Samuel's methods were not sudden. They were deliberate, carefully crafted to disarm the conscience. He convinced her that modesty, discomfort, or even a natural sense of boundaries toward him were signs of sin and impurity. He would say things like, "If I tell you to remove your clothes, you shouldn't feel shy, ashamed, or uneasy. Because if you feel that way, it means sin has already entered your heart." With those words, he reversed the meaning of holiness. He turned guilt into obedience and obedience into submission. Slowly, her mind began to believe that spiritual loyalty meant surrendering her body. At times, he would act out his perversion in the name of fatherly affection, saying things such as, "I can squeeze your breast, I can touch you, I can even hit your buttocks. Because I'm your father, there's nothing wrong with that." And as he spoke, he would do exactly what he said. It was never just talk. It was the grooming, disguised as spiritual closeness, masked as paternal care. He created a reality where confusion replaced conviction. The way he groomed her, and others too, was so subtle that after a while, wrong no longer looked wrong. The mind became conditioned, accepting, tolerating, even normalizing what was unholy. What began as teachings soon became repeated acts, many times, over and over again, until her sense of innocence was stolen and her will subdued. Later, Bishop Samuel's depravity deepened. He began asking for private photos, explicit photos of body parts. He would send messages like, "Send me, I want to see how it looks." And when conversations about sex or intimacy arose, he would follow with questions like, "Have you ever done this before? If I sleep with you today, would you do that to me?" Then he would always add the same threat, wrapped in guilt. "You must never tell anyone. If you do, you will be the wicked one. You will be the one trying to destroy a man of God. If you ever speak about what happens between us, you will be the reason a ministry collapses." Those words imprisoned her. They silenced her. She felt something was wrong, terribly wrong, but fear, guilt, and spiritual confusion trapped her in secrecy. He made her believe that holiness meant silence, and loyalty meant submission, that to expose sin was to sin. And in doing so, he desecrated the sacred, corrupting trust, twisting scripture, and violating the very soul of those who had once called him Father. What began as subtle manipulation soon grew into something darker, something predatory, oppressive, and spiritual in disguise. Bishop Samuel's tactics escalated to aggravated, deliberate actions. He began touching her more boldly, under the pretense of affection or prayer, until his hands no longer respected the boundaries of decency. He demanded private photos, asking her to send pictures of her body, especially her intimate parts. He would control how she dressed, dictating even the kind of undergarments she should wear, as though modesty before him was unnecessary. "I'm your father," he would say. "There's nothing wrong with that." He even said that your biological father would do the same. And Ariella, bound in confusion and fear, asked herself, why would my biological father ask photos of my naked body? However, due to Bishop Kwadei's authoritarian demeanor, she couldn't voice it. He liked to see and control, even the color of the pants Ariella wore. He made it sound spiritual, but it was pure corruption dressed as care. Soon, his messages became more explicit. He began sending her obscene pictures, claiming they resembled her. Once, he sent a photo of a woman's private parts and said, I believe your private part looks like this. The way I see your face, the way I see your shape. I think this is how you look. When Ariella protested and said no, he challenged her. You're denying it because you know I'm right. Prove it if you think I'm wrong. Each message chipped away at her peace of mind, until she no longer knew whether to cry, scream, or stay silent. Sometimes he would appear unannounced at the hostel where the young women lived. He would call Ariella to come down, pretending to check on her. Then, while claiming to pray for her or massage her back, his hands would roam freely, holding her breasts, pressing against her bra, violating her body while speaking softly as though it was normal. Every act blurred the line between holiness and horror. He then began isolating her, cutting her off from anyone who might notice the abuse or help her escape. Don't be close to Maria, he would warn. She's not a good person. She talks too much. Stay away from her. One by one, he pulled her away from friends and support. Loneliness became his weapon. Silence became his shield. And when Ariella resisted or tried to withdraw, he shifted his tone from tenderness to terror. He would guilt-trip her, saying things like, you are not being spiritual, you are letting the devil use your mind. Then other times, he would threaten her spiritually. If you expose me, you'll bring a curse on yourself. You will destroy a man of God, and God will judge you. It was a cycle of confusion, guilt, fear, and spiritual intimidation, carefully engineered to make her feel responsible for her own abuse. He blurred every sacred boundary until she could no longer separate fatherly love from exploitation, holiness from manipulation, or faith from fear. And in doing so, he enslaved her conscience, making her feel as though silence was loyalty and submission was salvation. Watch out for the continuation of this story. God bless you. Purpose of sharing the story. The story is being shared not for revenge, but to protect others. It exposes how spiritual authority can be twisted into psychological and sexual abuse. It urges churches, families, and institutions to create accountability structures and safe reporting spaces. Above all, it reminds survivors that God never authorizes abuse, and healing, justice, and redemption are possible through truth.